Hello and welcome to the channel, it's Irad and we have another episode of Inside Star Citizen. I'm going to react to it. It's about salvage, the new salvage mechanics that are coming up in 3.22 that I actually like. I try them, very relaxing, very cool kind of gameplay. It needs a little bit of balancing, especially with, I think, the revenue needs to be a little bit balanced. It seems a little bit of a very easy way to make money at the time right now, but that's okay. I guess the point is to test. But here we're going to have the opinions of the developers of CIG. Let's check it out.
So what happened since the last time we talked about salvage? So the last time we talked about it, it was about the prototypes that we were doing.
I remember when they did that. Yeah, there were lots of little pieces there. It seemed like it was very heavy on the GPUs. So they've really made sure that these pieces are not that tiny and not that fractured, and it's a much better approach.
The entities spawned from the entire piece, so the thousands and thousands of entities.
Yeah, that was a lot.
We had to reconsider our approach quite a lot because it was apparent from the prototype that several aspects of it weren't really going to work the way we wanted to.
And that's the point of a prototype, right?
With the demo failing,
make sure that
basically showing us the limits of our engine, which was the entity count, by showcasing that it takes a really long time to spawn all the entities that
that was way too much. I mean, look at that.
Would fit the size of an 890 jump.
We also had to reconsider some things because we wanted to get this in players' hands as soon as possible. So that means making a few adjustments to the scope.
We were asked to come up with a solution by end of this year, which is structural salvage.
There we go, and it works pretty well. And I love these little lightning bolts on the Vulture. I think that it looks super, super cool. I don't know, anyone who's tried it now, I mean, it's an open PTU now, so it's going to be an open PTU today. That's way forward, but anyone who has a Vulture or can maybe get a Vulture for a friend, you can see those lightning bolts in front of you. It feels like you have the power of a god in front of your heads. It's so cool. I love it. I was not expecting that when I played with the Vulture, but...
Structural salvage is breaking apart various ships in order to break down the pieces into construction material, which
and there we go. And now you can see the pieces of the ship are of a much more reasonable size. These are smaller pieces, but still big enough to be recognizable, and then they get disintegrated. That's the solution that CIG has come up with.
So it's just removing stuff from the persistent database.
So one of the challenges of developing a live game like Star Citizen is that we have to constantly be weighing up, trying to perfect a feature, which could take years, or trying to get something playable in players' hands so that we can start getting feedback from it. And
then it has to be reiterated. Is that what you're going to say?
Learning from it and figuring out how it fits in with the rest of the game.
So it was very important for us that we get some version of it out this year. It's not the full version yet, but it's a good first step that allows us to test the feature and close the ships that we already have.
Yeah, it's not a tier 0 either, right? But yeah, it's definitely going to be iterated. That pinch looks fantastic. Look
the
at
Vulture
that.
and the Reclaimer.
Are they going to show us how it works?
The new Vulture gameplay builds on what we already have. The idea is that you'll approach a wreck.
We want to encourage you to use the hull scraping first, so you don't lose the RMC in the process.
Which is higher value per SEU than construction materials. So
all right, so they did address here the construction material, higher value, so you make more money off the RMC. But, and this is the, okay, so I understand now, because I was thinking, it's way too quick to disintegrate a ship. But if they make sure that the RMC is worth more money, then they need to find that right balance where the time you spend is worth the money that you're gonna make, right? If the amount of RMC that you make, it takes time to get all that RMC, but if the amount of time that you are spending is the same, not the same, but if the money that you're making for the amount of time that you're spending is the same as the money that you're making for the amount of time that you're spending doing the construction material, then it's worth it. That's what I mean.
So the Vulture is equipped with a resonance field, which allows you to charge up energy on the target. Assuming that it's still in one piece, if you've not already blown it up with guns or missiles or something, you'll have to fracture it first.
Okay, so if a ship is already blown up in multiple pieces, we don't need to use that, right?
Field is built up between the arms, but it's also projected outwards.
Which will break it down into various parts.
We wanted to make sure that the resonance field wasn't going to create opportunities for griefing, so we've taken the precautions a step further from hull scraping, which requires that the target's shields are off, to structural salvage requiring that the ship's power is entirely off.
Nice. So they have learned from not the mistake, but they have learned from what people have done with the ESR.
So it'll be quite hard to use that offensively unless you find a way to disable the target's power plant.
And then you switch to the disintegration mode, which then disintegrates those parts and draws them into your salvage ship as construction material.
Then into the grinder and then into the internal storage. And from there you can then move it
do
out
have a physical
through the filler
grinder,
station
actually.
into the cargo grid.
The internal storage is one of the great additions we've made here.
What that is basically temporary storage between you gathering the material and you putting the material into cargo boxes.
And finally, we don't need to leave our seat every 2 SCU, which was a pain. And they have gotten rid of that. Thank you, devs, for listening
You
to
have
us.
more space inside of your ship. So when you now go back to the filler stations, instead of the material just being stored in the filler station, you now draw from this pool of internal storage.
That is slightly bigger than the actual cargo capacity of the Vulture and the Reclaimer. So you can basically fill up your ship first. While it is still filling, while it is partly full, or when it is full, you have someone else or yourself go down to the filler station and basically convert everything or all the resources that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I've already done some salvaging in a crew, and it's a really satisfactory experience. Like, yeah, you got someone in the pilot seat doing all the salvaging work, and you've got another person in another ship, a cargo ship, and they get all those boxes, they put them in the cargo ship, and it's great. And you can do much more than just, 13 or 12 SCUs in your Vulture. By that, you can do basically as much as you want. A really cool experience, and you do that with a friend as well.
The internal storage into the cargo boxes. The boxes come out automatically, so they deplete the internal storage, and you will be able to move those boxes around on the cargo grid.
That's really cool. Yeah, they don't come automatically on the cargo grid, though, so you have to do that yourself.
Which does really help with the player experience of the Vulture. A lot of people were saying was problematic because there was a lot of getting up from the seat, going back, and then going back to the pilot seat again.
Yes, they listened to the player base. Good on you, CIG. Good on you.
So this is an improvement there. Once you've essentially got all of the stuff out of the filler stations, you'll be able to fly them somewhere and sell them.
All right, there's the RMC. Now the construction material. Oh, let's go back. 1 alpha unit per unit. Man, that's placeholder. Yeah, that is. I cannot imagine that's going to. I cannot imagine that construction material is going to be costing 3 times less than waste, right? So that's definitely placeholder. Damn it. I was hoping to see a proper
The Reclaimer
price.
gameplay is very similar to that of the Vulture, except that it's all done by the claw operator, who is the co-pilot seat.
You may notice that the claw of the Reclaimer will look different. I think the art team did a really good job there.
Wow, look at that. Look at how it looks like from the inside. I suppose that this is where it's going to be getting the same, electric things and shockwaves. So actually it's not really a claw, right? It's not grabbing things.
Request to start looking at the structural salvage feature support. Yeah, the feature team reached out to us and explained to us what they wanted to do and how it was all going to work. And obviously that means that from our point of view, there's a few things we needed to do. It's always had this kind of great big claw underneath it, underslung under the cab. And now was the time that we were going to look at it and kind of make that nice kind of feature of the ship actually function.
Now we have the gameplay
but is
defined
it really a claw that
and
works?
redesign or revisualize.
Okay. All right, I got it. So it's just doing the same thing as the Vulture. All right. I was wondering, is it really going to grab things, right? No.
Claw.
Woo!
We didn't want to just kind of start from scratch. We wanted to take the essence of the original, but rework it to a way that now made sense with how the actual feature works as a whole.
Yeah,
one of the things we wanted
massive.
to do was make sure that the claw was in the player view when you were sat in the operator seat. And because of that, we tried a few different options out with the claw kind of like facing forward originally, and then we kind of had it facing up.
We wanted to have the hand of the claws actually upward facing so that we have it easier accessible by the tractor beam gun.
Okay, I gotta say that this is making the Reclaimer much more desirable now that I'm seeing that.
On the Reclaimer so they can feed into the hand. But we realized with the updated position that is more forward-facing, it makes more sense because we weirdly navigate that the hand is below it, and with the tractor beam it still works.
You will no doubt have noticed that we're no longer calling this feature munching, and that's because we just didn't have the bandwidth to support an actual physical munching action of the claw.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, right? It's like, is it really going to destroy things? It just doesn't make any sense. Seems like a technology from right now, 20th, 21st century, right? What if this is the 30th century? So they come up with some kind of tech that just disintegrates things. I'm fine with that. Actually, I think it looks pretty cool. And if it allows us to get this kind of gameplay a little bit earlier than before, and if also it's better for the game engine and the performance, then so be it. I think that's perfect.
On the original, it was like claw that would rip things apart. Now the feature isn't working like that.
So now it acts as the field emitter for the resonance and disintegration field.
You can still start with hull scraping, and we highly encourage you to actually do that so that you get the RMC, which we will increase in value. So it will be worth your time to actually do the extra step. And claw will activate the resonance field or fracture field of the claw, and the claw operator then needs to communicate with the pilot to...
Plus, at the same time, now in the Reclaimer, you can just scrape as much as you want. It's just because there's the buffer now, so it's just going to accumulate in the buffer, and that's basically it. Once you're done, then the co-pilot does the claw. This is like a great multi-crew. They are making the Reclaimer a really great multi-crew ship here. I regret not having gotten a Reclaimer during the Expo.
To bring the claw into the position of the target that you want to fracture. Once the target is in the fracture field of the claw operator will press a button, a timer will run down, and the ship that is affected by it will break into pieces.
Currently,
Nice.
you're not able to move the claw around, but the remote turrets do have tractor beams on them.
Not only you can hold the objects or rotate the objects with the tractor beams, you can now also pull the objects into the resonance field or into the disintegration field.
Wow, that's so cool. What a great way to use a tractor beam. Like, if it's too far, you bring it a little bit closer with tractor beam. That's nice.
The idea is that you use the...
And so you don't need to move the ship, which is a pain because it's super heavy and not maneuverable at all.
tractor beams to grab any drifting pieces and move them into the field.
Yes.
And the next step then is actually converting those pieces that you just created into the resources that you want to gather. And for that, the claw operator will switch into the disintegration mode. Again, you press a button, the ship is basically heated up and then converted into a material.
We needed a way of collecting all that material, and that's where we decided to take some inspiration from...
I love that little, what is it, like these micro particles that go inside. That's brilliant.
what we did on the Vulture. Between these kind of big emitters, we were still sucking in all this material, and that material was then being processed and ground up and kind of sent down to the main ship itself.
That's so
And
cool.
then directly moved into the internal storage of the Reclaimer.
The filler stations in the Reclaimer have been changed as well, because the Reclaimer is such a big ship, and having it just one SCU container.
Yeah, that would make no sense. Can you imagine like 200 boxes of cargo inside? That would have been crazy, right? So we can have much bigger ones now.
For like 360 SCU of space was laborious.
To that, we also allow you to create bigger boxes now on the
Yes,
Reclaimer. So
nice.
it's not only the 1 SU boxes that you currently have, but it's 1, 2. We don't have 4, but we have 8 and 16.
Which then you can go about stacking to your heart's content.
We really wanted to reduce the amount of back and forth that you have to do, and we think it's a good
It's very
solution.
thoughtful.
One of the distinctions with the Reclaimer, though, is that it can break apart basically any size target, whereas
Well, did they show a javelin there? Can we break apart the javelin?
the Vulture is limited to only up to a certain size of ship.
Oh,
So currently anything above, I think it's the Star Runner, can't be fractured by the Vulture, which is something you would need the Reclaimer to fracture.
So bigger than the Vulture. Oh, sorry, bigger than the MSR. Cannot be fractured.
So if you can find one of these big wrecks, obviously there's a lot of material to be gained from this, which means obviously more SCU to be sold at the end, which is vastly more profit. We like to think that it would be more profitable to do this than the Vulture, but obviously the Vulture is still very much convenient if you're a single player who goes around doing single player salvage.
We're still
Yeah, and if you are in a multi-crew org, you do large-scale bounty hunting. Maybe you want to recuperate the wrecks as well that are on the ground.
very interested in enhancing the destruction side of structural salvage, more similar to what was originally conceptualized with munching, but we're going to have to wait for Maelstrom to be more fully realized before we can...
Okay, so that's where we're gonna have our next tier of salvage, Maelstrom, which is the tech that allows destructibility in the game. It makes sense.
Start experimenting with that. So we've done a few things to improve the quality of life of salvage in general. First of all, the Vulture has some interesting features that you can control each of its little salvage arms independently, so that you can hold onto a target with a tractor beam.
Some of the elements that you will have in front of you, the sum of all the pieces that you will have in front of you will be too much for your cargo hold. So what you shouldn't do in that time is actually trigger the disintegration, because every material inside that field will be disintegrated. So material will be lost that way. This is where the tractor beams come in place, because you can move out those objects that would make your internal storage overspill.
So if you disintegrate things that have been disintegrated already, you're going to lose the material.
So you get this nice little gameplay of, yeah, I actually pick what I want to grab. We also already in slight update to the crafting that we have in there.
Okay.
So now that we have two materials, we adjusted the crafting costs in the filler station. So they are now
so we can have both types of materials.
more realistic, so they are not punishingly expensive anymore. For the future, it will be even more meaningful, because then like the material composition will be different. So it's not only construction materials, but it's specific to the parts that you have there. But that is for the far future, so it's not for now.
One of the most prominent quality of life features is the changes to the filler station. On both the Vulture and the Reclaimer, they now have the option to set the filler station to auto-eject mode, where it will just repeatedly
Yes, that's right. And the boxes just come out. Yeah, that's brilliant.
eject the last selected crate.
But you have to make sure that you are picking up those boxes
the
quickly
internal
enough.
storage into cargo boxes, as long as you're quick enough at putting them on the cargo grid. Releasing structural salvage in 3.22 will give players an opportunity to play it and start giving us feedback on how we can continue to build on it for the future.
That's awesome. Guys, you gotta try, if you can, because it's not open wave yet, but it's gonna be very soon. If you can try 3.22 and the salvage mechanics, it's awesome. So go check it out. That is all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I've been here. I'll see you guys in the next one.